recording. The first thing on the list, we advertised on the website that the testnet's going to end October 12th, and we're going to stop the sales on the 21st, so that's out there. Your guys' thoughts on last week of testnet? Anything that we can do more to help support you?
I mean the bug reports are coming in through the backend service. We were able to investigate using that a little bit. So I mean we're doing fine.
How have you liked the new
as far as testing? Is there anything you need, like you're not getting out of the testers that you would want?
Not really. I mean, the purpose of the testnet was to illuminate which problems we have, and then so we can address them. And I mean, we've addressed most of the problems people have had, which is good. The testnet's working, and the fact that we're getting fewer problems coming in is, I mean, it's just the whole thing's working.
Yeah, and I'm going to go through today after this and try and find as many bugs as I can. Have you liked the new reporting system, the bug report? Has that been more helpful than Discord?
Yeah.
Cool. Review of the open tickets. Like I said, I'm not on top of this. Super, I don't know if you know the tickets or anything you want to call out on these.
I have not tested it since last meeting.
Yeah,
I plan to do that today.
The only real problem is that, and this is associated with nearly every problem that we have, is that chain IDs are not making it through transfers from card to card, and we've been trying to figure out what's up with that, and it's strangely elusive as an issue. So, and that's the root of the 10,000 10,000 native phonons when you try to send one Matic or whatever. That's the root of the alpha, or that's the root of the regular phonons showing up as native phonons, and that's a handful of other things. Actually, no, that's a different problem. That's neither here nor there. So we've been working on that, and that's going to be most of the problems. Other than that, we've pretty well addressed everything, or we won't address it for this version.
I had a question about the telemetry key. I was going through the guides and was getting a question about that, and I don't know how to tell somebody how to insert their telemetry key.
Oh, yeah, the guides are...
Is there like a text file or something?
No, all you got to do is run the application when there's no text file, and then it generates it for you.
So the problem is that it doesn't give you that prompt. It just straight up boots up into localhost.
Yeah, it gives you that prompt if there's no configuration file. If there is a configuration file, it skips the prompt.
Where do you find that?
What do you mean?
Like, where do you find the text file?
That is at your home directory /.phonon/phonon.yaml. That's the name of the file.
Perfect. If I have any questions, I'll ask you again later, or somebody. Yeah, I would say maybe if more people are getting the test kit and they run into that issue, it might be nice to add that to the guide.
I don't know who's in charge of the guide.
Yeah, because it's really good, but it tells you to put it in the prompt window, and I know that I didn't get the prompt window when I set it up, and Rake had to walk me through it. I don't know other users. Rooster didn't get it either. A few other people don't, because a lot of people hit like exit without saving or something like that the first time.
If you hit exit without saving, then it should be fine.
Huh.
If you hit don't show me this window again, then you're never going to see the window again.
Nice. Okay.
You know, it behaves as it says it will. Who would have thought?
Yeah, I don't know who wrote the guide either. I thought it was Tuesday that wrote it.
Yeah, it's really good, but it doesn't have that in it. That's the only thing I was going to say.
Yeah.
You may want to reach out to Tuesday since people update them.
I will do.
And that issue, Nate, you said that was elusive. Is it elusive for you guys to track down, or is it elusive to replicate?
It's not elusive to replicate. The problem is, okay, so we have the real cards, which we cannot see inside of while they're running, and then we have the mock cards. So we tested transfers between mock cards, and they work just fine. Then we tested transfers between mock cards and real cards, and they work just fine. Then we tested transfers between real cards and mock cards, and they work just fine. When you do it between a real card and a real card, they don't work. But we can't look into that process, so we have to figure out what's different when a real card is sending to a real card compared to when a real card is sending to a mock card. The mock card is supposed to mirror the behavior of a real card from an API perspective perfectly, but it isn't for some reason. We don't know why. And once we figure out what the difference between what's happening in a transfer between two real cards and a real card and a mock card, then we'll be able to figure out what's happening.
Do you think it could even be a manufacturing issue?
No, it would be very. If something was wrong with those cards, it would pop up and.
Well, like it was loaded with something it shouldn't have been, or something like that.
I mean, having that. I mean, that's always possible. Maybe Dan fat fingered which commit he was checking out to, but that's unlikely because we did a lot of testing to make sure everything was at the right version and everything.
Is there anything specific that you want people to be testing out right now? Like any action that you would like more feedback on?
Not particularly. I suppose it's well known that I have little imagination in a lot of these areas. So my thought is that other people will come up with better things than I can tell them to do.
One thing that we're doing in the background is there's going to be there's this group called Hats Finance. They're basically a DAO for white hat hackers and OPSEC folks. There's like 4,000 members, and we're going to connect our testnet bounties into their bounty boards, and then hopefully a few hundred of them can come in and check things out and hopefully find something and break them. And I think Break's plan to go there and challenge them and tell them that phone is impossible to hack.
Okay.
His plan. But we're having a couple calls with them. We had one today, and that should be fun. We might have to extend the testnet because it takes a lot of them are international. Like a bunch are in Israel and stuff, so we might need to extend testnet in a couple weeks to get them cards. But I think they're a great group.
Okay. Yeah, there's no real reason why we can't push the testnet completion date.
Is there any reason why we can't just leave it open longer for them since they're doing probably a higher level?
There's also no real reason why we can't do that.
Yeah, I think last time we talked about this ending it just so there's an incentive to do the task and get done. But if we don't say anything to them or tell them, hey, you guys are later, sounds like a good solution.
Yeah, totally fine.
As far as doing tasks, is there a good way to find out if you've completed all the tasks?
Yes, we have an API. Now, is that API connected to a front end? No. Do I have to write that front end? Yes. Will I be doing that today? Probably.
Oh, okay, cool. And that's not a big deal. It's just like, I think I finished all the tasks, but I don't know,
Yeah. Yep.
Especially when like some of them went through as like end phone on or did or didn't work.
Yeah.
So we won't go through the bugs since we don't have any questions to turn on, and I think that's on the main one that you spoke about, Nate. So.
Yeah, I mean that's been a bug for the last couple of weeks, and it's just impossible to track down. It's very difficult. I've had Light working on that for the last few days, and
it's not nice.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the cards are opaque, and they kind of have to be. So testing with them kind of difficult,
Does that prevent people from completing all the tasks? That bug?
No.
Okay.
No, it does not.
Another question, I guess, too, if we get this testnet to a point where we're happy, is there any plans to try and do any additional tests before the beta, or we just want to roll that all into beta and start again?
I think as we implement new items into the spec for the new version, we will be sending out new pre-beta cards to select people, though I don't think we'll do another full public testnet.
Cool.
And that's just my
so you're saying you don't think beta will be public?
I don't have any. I think beta will be public, but I don't think before beta we're going to do any additional public testing. Though that's just me speculating, as I have no real power other than when it comes to the code.
And just a reminder, we have a beta meeting next Wednesday.
Yes.
Nice.
And Dan will be back for that, so he'll be able to illuminate much of these things.
Yeah, and just to state it again, I would really like for us to go through the beta test net and be prepared for it this time, so it's a pleasant experience day one, and people know what they need to do and how to do all the parts and pieces of it and give feedback, etc. But it seems like we've got a really good step with this alpha test already.
Yeah.
Cool. So the next one on the list is the shipping update.
Same as last week. Dan's still gone.
All right. Do you know how many more have sold or how many are left?
I do not have that information. I am but a lowly programmer.
Do we know when Dan gets back so I can throw that in the notes?
He'll be back by Monday, hopefully. Barring, external circumstances.
We kind of touched on the next one, an API to a front end where we can see how many tasks are completed. Do you have any insight on how many people completed all the tasks so far?
I have not. I'll have to. I was going to run it on I was going to check everyone's on the API to make sure the API was working.
The next one is about what Hitch's developed. We talked a little bit about that earlier.
Yep.
The question I have is, so he's building this based upon alpha. Is this work that he's doing going to go out the window for beta, or is this going to be something that we need to just roll into beta?
I don't know exactly what he's targeting. If he's targeting the API backend for the front end, which is a weird thing. If he's targeting our REST API for the backend, then likely much of it will be rendered unusable.
Okay. So, Nate, could you respond to him and tell him that on the there, or if you want us to, you can as well. What I'm getting at is like, this is great that he's doing all this work. I want to be aware that if the data comes in, things are going to change.
Yeah. Where did he ask that?
In general,
Did I miss it?
he didn't ask. He just said, "Hey, this is what I'm making."
Oh, yeah. I've talked to him since then. I've tried to dissuade him, but he seems adamant about continuing, so I'm not going to stop him.
I mean, the great thing is we know how it looks and it can be easily adapted, if not recreated, to fit that format again.
And I know he listens to these recordings, so
yeah,
Yep.
it looks baller.
So the question I have on here is, and this maybe will be more towards Mickey, and it's like anything else we can do to support and promote this type of effort, get a lot more people out there. Maybe we don't have an answer now, but it's something we can talk about at the beta call.
So I guess you have different aspects of the phone on application. You have the phone on core, which is libraries designed to talk to secure devices. And then you have the phone on API, which is what this is targeting. And then you have the phone on front end. The front end is fully developed by us, and it's meant for users and not meant to be programmed against. The API is kind of in the middle, where it's something where it's primarily made to support our efforts and our front end. So I don't think we're going to go through very many pains to specifically make it easy for other people to program against, though we're making it easy for us to program against. So it's going to be a fairly well-designed, fairly well-supported API. But phone on core is kind of going to be the main part that we expect other people to extend and use and work with. So as beta comes closer, we will be moving that into the phone on DAO GitHub organization. And then hopefully that'll become a very, very stable API once we stabilize the spec for the card. So that one, once that comes out, will need to be well documented and possibly ported to a couple other languages, just so that other people can use it. Though the API that Grid Plus is managing to support our front end I'm not sure that we really plan on supporting this sort of effort in the future directly. Though we're not going to stop anyone from doing it. You know what I mean?
Just to
Yeah.
make sure I understand, you got a front end, an API, and then a phone on core. Those are the three different parts.
And then the core is just a library for communicating with the for
It's for
communicating
people
with
to
the
like extend
secure
and
elements.
add their own stuff too.
Not for people to extend, but for people to use. You know, because it supports the exact operations that you can call on the card, and then a little bit of upper level stuff to make managing that a little bit easier. So that stuff is going to be hopefully included in a lot of phone-on projects made by other people. Like if you're doing a Dex or if you're doing a poker game or whatever, we expect that that'll be what you import to gain access to the to using the phone-on technology. Though the API design, we have the way it's set up right now is designed kind of specifically for making our front end, and that's how the development has gone, kind of in lockstep. So I mean, I don't know where to go from there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just adding to Klamada's points, like just making sure things are super well documented, super easy to use, and I think as well, like Hinchy likes it here. It's like a great community, great people, and then we have a clear direction where we want to go. And I think there's a lot of collaboration and creativity in the
Yeah. So the phone on core is going to be that super well documented, very easy to work with, very easy to use, meant for external contributors to work with. The API is going to be documented well enough for us to use, which is still documented and still not particularly difficult to use, but we're not going to be going and supporting everyone's web design efforts on recreating our front end, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Like your microspace. So from the phone on core.
And of course, Hinchy's front end isn't targeting our API. It's targeting I believe it's targeting the card directly. So now that I'm remembering that, this is less relevant. What I'm saying.
Are there any
Anyway.
issues with doing that?
No, not really.
Okay.
I mean, the only issues is, yeah, I know it's probably fine.
So my goal, I think our goal should be like, hey, let's communicate this out. Because the core piece is what you're going to want to build upon. So if there's other people out there besides Hinchy that wants to build on, and then any, like what we said earlier, like we need to make sure that's well documented. Say, go here to build.
Yeah, I think what's going to be very important is making it so that core piece is extendable to other languages. Because right now the core is written in Go, and it's very easy to bring it in with a Go project. You just put an import statement in and just start using it. If you have a project that you're trying to write in another language, like if you want to write a front end, if you want to write like an Electron app, or if you want to write something in JavaScript, then you basically have to import the Go library, expose an API, and then write your JavaScript to communicate with that API. That's what we've done. It would be nice to see if we can get that compiled down to something like WebAssembly to allow for JavaScript API or JavaScript to communicate using it. It'd be nice to maybe port it to a lower level language like C++ or C or Rust, and then you can extend it by using it with Python or pretty much any number of higher level languages. If you get it in something like that, or just figure out how to link it with Go as though it was a C library, or link the Go code as though it was a C library. That would be very useful.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
So with that, like going to other languages, is that something you guys will do, or is that something you would say, hey, we need help with this?
That's something I might do, at least with Rust, just as a personal project. Though Dan doesn't want me doing that, so I probably won't do it officially. As a Grid Plus employee, though, my weekends are my weekends. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. My weekends are my weekends, and I can do it as a DAO member just for funsies. But that's not something Grid Plus is probably going to be. Grid Plus is probably not going to be leading the way on that. Nate Mail DAO member may do it, but it's not a Grid Plus thing.
It kind of spins out into our giant, or maybe not giant, but our bounty board, our technical bounty board, right? Like one sort of the core layer of that is just doing our homework and eating our vegetables, just having a really accessible SDK, making it easy to transfer the language either through Rust or however we want to do it. So people can program however they want. They can run Python scripts. They can do whatever they feel like they want to do, and it's really easy. So they can just come in and start testing things out and fuck around.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like our first. Before we do anything really sexy and cool, we should just do the basic, like kind of boring stuff.
In the words of Steve Ballmer, developers.
Yeah.
So that's a very important thing to keep in mind.
Our first phone-on conference will be on stage, screaming about it and running across the stage.
Yeah, I'll start with a knockoff of the BitConnect screaming, and then I'll move into my knockoff of the Steve Ballmer developers, and then I'll throw on a turtleneck and some white shoes, and then I'll go into a Steve Jobs-esque keynote.
And then orange sunglasses rip a US dollar in half in front of everyone and start screaming.
$1? No, I'll be ripping hundreds in half, and I'll do multiple.
Hundreds in half.
But the DAO will be funding it, so.
That's right. Turn your cash into cash by ripping it in half.
Exactly.
Well, thanks, Nate. That helped explain a lot, at least in my head. So.
Yeah.
And I would say our beta meeting on Wednesday, let's maybe go over this again and repeat that as well. And, like this is the plan, and this is the direction we're heading.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no worries. I'm not afraid of repeating things. I don't know if you figured it out. I like to talk.
That's great. So that's all I had. Anybody else have anything else before I stop the recording?
Shane, I was wondering if you had any thoughts on Bannon's comments around finding a way for Phonon to enforce peer-to-peer transfers, so we could augment something like Uniswap.
Yes, I put in my thoughts, though I probably went too technical too quick and didn't get to say, yeah, that makes sense and is a good idea. But yeah, that makes sense and is a good idea. And then I just immediately started launching into how I was going to implement it. Yeah, that seems like a totally reasonable thing. It's going to depend a little bit on how we can coerce the cards into doing that, if we can do it with some cryptographic thing, or if maybe the cards don't have enough power, or maybe that doesn't make enough sense, and we can just as long as the users don't know what step the Phonon cards are in while they're doing it, then it's fine, you know.
So are you saying there's a potential to be able to do it and not have to withdraw from Phonon? Like you could act with the wallet it's holding?
What do you mean?
Like would it reveal the private key to do that?
No. As long as, I mean, so this is for talking about transferring and preventing
a Uniswap kind of
counterparty
thing.
risk.
Yeah.
The thing about it is there's always going to be a chance of someone griefing, wherein they initiate a transfer, the other person transfers, or starts the transfer, and then you start a transfer and pull out early. And then both parties lose the card. But the way I'm thinking of it would make it very difficult to set up a way in that you can receive without sending the other person.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense?
Yep.
I don't know what my point was. I was going to say something else, but I forgot.
The griefing is basically you're basically fucking over both you and your counterparty, right? You're basically just ruining the transfer. What happens to the phonons at that point? Like, where do they go?
They are no longer accessible to you or the other person. I mean, they're probably just going to sit on the card and take up space until they're deleted. They'll probably be put in some lock state. It's I haven't made the spec for it yet, so I don't know, or we haven't made the spec for it. Not necessarily. I'm going to be doing
something I've always wondered. You know how and this is going to be a really idiot thing to say, but you know how like the old Nintendo 64 cartridges, there used to be certain cheats where you would like lift one edge of the cartridge up a little bit when it was loading to get certain things to not load correctly, so you could alter the game. Is there any potential to do that with this card, or it just does not work at all?
As far as I understand, that sort of thing wouldn't work. Because I mean, the card communicates with the with like the Nintendo 64 cartridge. There's
just
a
reading
whole bunch
memory.
of pins that are set to read and write in memory and all sorts of things. The only way to get information in or out of the phone on cards is with an APDU call, and an APDU call kind of either goes through or it doesn't.
Cool.
Though don't quote me on that. I mean, I believe that to be true, but don't quote me on it.
Yeah, I might just inundate you with some card lifting bugs.
Yeah. I lifted the card out midway through a transfer, and now the transfer didn't go through. What's wrong? Yeah. No, I don't think we'll be subject to Nintendo 64 style attacks, though.
What were you doing at the time of the bug? Eating a bean burrito.
Yeah.
So basically, we need to just build like some way to test if we can actually do this, and then try to approach a DEX and then roll out like another testnet thing with that in mind, like sometime in the future, like when we have resources and stuff like that. But sounds like it's at least feasible. We can explain how it would be done at least.
Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
There's a way to set it up where the only risk is griefing.
Yeah.
And if Elon Musk wants to start doing $100,000 transfers and then canceling them midway through, I don't know if there's any way to solve Elon Musk fucking with people. Because he can take the hit from griefing, and maybe the guy on the other side can't. That'd be a problem.
I guess that's why I think it was Cloak was talking about like a trusted OTC like phone on market where we like pass out trusted cards to certain people who want to do OTC transfers, and then you have less fear of like some dickhead coming around and just fucking people over.
Yeah. Well, then you got to centralize it on that organization or that group or whatever, and it's trusting them, which is totally fine.
Yeah. Could we like route it through the DAO's own phone on cards? Like if we had a card farm.
Yeah.
And you wanted to pay an extra fee for like trust.
Yeah, if you want to do that.
You can like have like a card farm. People could just transfer through our cards, and it would work like escrow.
There's a couple of places where I think something like that would work. You could have the service for escrow, which would be useful. And then I was thinking that the way the phone on descriptor works is you can just set whatever descriptor you want on the phone on and say, yeah, this is a 1 zillion ETH. Right, because since the phone on card has no concept of what the internet is, you can just say whatever you want to the phone on card, and then the client, you can just write a bad client that just does that. So then we're building in verification where it'll send a public key, and then the opposing side client can look up can query the chain and see if the assets that are claimed to be on the card are real. There's also an idea of where you'd have some trusted third party that does this lookup and then puts a signature into the phone on descriptor of the descriptor itself. And then that way, if you trust that signature, after that third party, Oracle or whatever has verified that those values are on the chain or on that phone on, then you can transfer completely offline without having to verify, just trusting that the Oracle service has verified your phone ons.
Yeah.
So that's also another place where a trusted service would come in place. And that'd be really useful for truly offline transfers, because then you don't have to trust the other people. You just trust whatever central authority that signed the phone on descriptor at the time of transfer, or at the time of what's it called when they put the stuff on the card. Whatever, words, concepts, ideas. It's in my head. It all works out.
I'm going to read Bannon's comments. We talked about a way to back up phonons using a smart contract. Phonon could contain any asset, but the smart contract facilitates trustless recovery. I do wonder if this hybridized with the peer-to-peer swap would make it so a failed transaction could be recovered. Challenge response to a failed transaction. Not sure how that would look under the hood or if it's even possible, but a way to recover failed swaps would be pretty good too, in my opinion.
I'm not the guy to talk to about that. I don't know much about smart contracts and how that all works. I mean, I understand it on a base level, but I'm not an expert on that, so I'll defer to whoever wants to take it.
Break is
All right,
unmuted.
no one wants to pick that up. Wait, sorry.
Break is unmuted.
I'm unmuted, but I didn't hear the entire question though.
Just the comment that Bannon made in the chat, in the general chat.
He said, we've talked about a way to back up phonons using a smart contract. Phonon could contain any asset, but a smart contract facilitates trustless recovery. I do wonder if this hybridized with the P2P swap would make it so a failed transaction could be recovered. Challenge response to a failed transaction. Not sure how that would look under the hood or if it's even possible, but a way to recover failed swaps would be pretty good too, in my opinion.
I can think about that, but I don't know. Out of memory right now. Give me a couple minutes or an hour or so.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the earlier conversation. I would say we were having these conversations back in February, even right after we launched the DAO, about what happens if you lose your card. You lose your card, you lose your phonons, you lose your money, you lose your assets, NFTs, whatever's in the phonon. But we said, well, there might be a way to back up phonons if, on chain, if there's like be pre-registering them or something. It was talked about, it was thrown around as an idea because it kind of solves that fear of if you lose your card, you lose your money. That comes with just the base protocol. Then you take that and then you combine that with swaps and potentially you have something that feels a lot more, watertight. You don't come to Uniswap and say, well, yeah, this works, but somebody loses their internet connection at the wrong time, they lose all their money, and so does the counterparty. That's just not going to fly, I don't think. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose. Yeah, I guess I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm with you, Banan. I mean, I'm definitely of the opinion that, having a 99.9% good transaction record is fine, but that 0.01% is going to be a real issue.
I mean, I guess my thought is if you think of Phonon as digital cash, you get all the benefits of cash, but you also will get some of the drawbacks of cash. If you're handing over $1 to someone and a wind gust takes the dollar and blows it away, you've lost that dollar, and there's not much you can do about that. And I suppose I kind of see Phonon as having a similar problem where if your internet connection goes out.
The only difference, though, is those two parties understand the dollar blowing away in the wind.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, early on, and that was when Carl was still around, there was some agreement. It seemed like that in theory that could work, that there was a way to make a phonon, recoverable. So I don't know. It seems like it solves a couple different problems now if we were able to do that. And
well, I guess my thought is the cards themselves have no concept of time or the chain or any communication with anything other than a client and another card. So to set up a system like that would prevent double spending would be difficult, I suppose.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you a solution that might work. There are a different way to think about it. I could be totally wrong. But what if you were able to connect a wallet and have that like a Grid Plus card or a MetaMask, something like that, and have it associated with your phone on card. And in the event of a loss, you could use that wallet for recovery.
The problem is if you use the wallet for recovery, your card doesn't know that you've done that.
Yeah, I understand.
And your card could still be doing offline transactions and sending those things around, even though they've been recovered and used and spent and they're gone.
But wouldn't it check before it makes a transaction that there's nothing in the wallet, the bucket?
The card doesn't have any concept of any of that stuff.
Well, but if I deposit 1 ETH on my phone on card, before it transfers, it checks that there's 1 ETH before it transfers, right?
The counterparty is going to be responsible for doing that in the new spec for transfers. Though then you lose the ability to then if any card could have a recovered phone on. Well, this is the thing. If you do an offline transfer, I'd say I have, a what's the word? Let's say I have a phone on that I could recover. If I have a recoverable phone on my card, and then I send it to someone else, and then I recover it, there's nothing that can be done about that. I mean, the other person.
Oh, because you could send it and then recover it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is why
Well-
the conversation that was headed toward using the blockchain essentially as a trusted third party to facilitate the swaps. It doesn't have to be, for example, if you're swapping two different blockchain assets, the trusted third party, the blockchain, say it's Ethereum with a smart contract, it doesn't matter what assets you're swapping. It just needs to understand that you're conducting a swap and be able to handle that sort of trusted third party custody of those phonons to facilitate the swap in a trustless way. And then, you don't need to have some kind of weird protocol level change where swaps have no counterparty risk. It's just all facilitated on chain. And swaps like cross chain swaps, they're all going to be online anyways. You don't really have to worry about offline swaps, because if you do offline swaps, you should be standing there physically in front of whoever it is you're swapping with, and then you have the wrench attack. So I mean, if does that make sense? What I'm saying?
You could have an intranet swap.
Yeah, I guess I'm just saying eventually it looks like we're going to have a TTP with trusted third party, but if it could be the blockchain, so it's still trustless, it's just facilitated through the blockchain. It doesn't matter what assets you're swapping, the blockchain just needs to know this is, it helps facilitate the swap. And
I guess I just don't understand what mechanism that would. I suppose I just don't get it.
I'm not good enough to explain what was talked about
Yeah.
5 months ago on this.
And of course, during those conversations 5 months ago, I still didn't get it.
There's no way to. I guess you can't back up the private key. So
Yeah, there's no backup of private keys. Private key cannot exist in more than one place at one time within the phone-on system.
Yeah. It's like we're like basically, if anything we're building out is like we're basically building out a system to rug people.
Yeah, that's what we would be doing if we could do that.
We've talked about side loading phone-ons so that card storage isn't an issue. The only thing the card needs to have is the ability to basically reload the phone-on for storage reasons, right? So
yes.
So what would that look like in terms of, for example, I sent a completely encrypted phone-on to a blockchain where it was kept on chain, verifiably proven to be that phone-on. The card then destroys it once it's on the chain. The counterparty does the same thing. The smart contract facilitates the confirmation that the trade has been executed, and then sends the other phone-ons to the new counterparties. So it's all done decentralized.
Well, then the new counterparties can't unencrypt the packet.
Well, the blockchain should have the information to send that to the new counterparty, and since it's under a contract, smart contract, nothing on the chain should ever be able to do that.
Yeah, but then once the encrypted packet gets to the other card doesn't have enough information to
No, I'm saying basically look at the blockchain like a trusted third party. It contains all the information necessary to decrypt both phonons, and it knows who to send those to because that's part of the swap structure of the smart contract. Essentially, those phonons only exist on chain for a period of time, and they're fully decryptable by the chain, but the chain won't do it because it's a smart contract, and it has to follow the smart contract code. So you're using the decentralized nature of the chain to do that.
I suppose I see what you're saying.
All I know is we need to figure this out, or else we're basically just a payments platform unless we have trusted third parties for everything. I mean, that's fine if that's what we're going to be. Is like go pay for your latte. Nobody's going to want to put $1 million into phonons when they're fragile, and you lose your car, you lose $1 million. This is, to me, this is like priority number one. We got to figure this out.
So what guarantees that the smart contract isn't going to decrypt the phonons?
Well, it's a smart contract. I mean, who trusts Uniswap? You trust Uniswap because it's a proven, audited smart contract, and this would be the same.
Yeah. So then So how would the smart contract? I mean, the way it works is maybe I don't understand enough about smart contracts or cryptography. But what the hell is this? Rake just sent me. Yeah, like I said, I'm not the smart contract guy, so I don't know that that's. I have no idea.
I get it. I think it's something we should, as a DAO, we should, try to put some effort into figuring out the answer.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to with this hats finance group. I put the ask in for them. They have like 4,000 some smart contract experts and like sort of hacker types. So I put the ask out there for them, and then hopefully they can come back and we can have a call with them and walk through our question. Maybe they can, help us at least articulate it.
And did you specifically put swapping or even recovery kind of bounties up there?
I haven't put any bounties yet, but that would be the goal. Is basically a bounty to kind of architect a potential solution for this, so we could interface with a DEX.
Yeah, because I could tell you when we have a legitimate phone on card, I would be willing to go through the extra vulnerability of some kind of a backup, even if I put $100 on it.
Yeah, I think like these are all like great ancillary services as well, right? If you want a little bit more trust, you pay a bit more.
Yeah, if you want to be completely edged off the like, no ties whatsoever, no strings attached. Yeah, absolutely. But if you are at the end of the day would rather have your $100.
This is the thing: is if you can back up your phonons, then that's a risk to me transacting with you.
Correct.
And I'm not willing to take that risk, and we can't allow that into the protocol if that's the case. And if you can back up the phonons in a way that only you can only get them back onto your card, that's fine. But if
well,
if you can back up
the
your
card's
phonons in a
destroyed,
way,
that's the problem, though.
Yeah,
it's something like we have to like it's like Nate's saying, right? You don't want to introduce ruggable phonons into phonon, but you do want to have some ancillary service that finds a way to secure stuff. So I think it's just having a bunch of really smart people work on this problem for a while and figuring something out. I don't think we can figure that right here, but I think just getting as many smart people in one room and articulating our ask and our problem, hopefully we can get some solution up.
And I know Justin in the past mentioned that Mariano and some of the really smart writers out there are willing to help because these guys can express what we want or what we're looking for. So it might be another path. Because I thought the hat was more of like trying to break stuff. I didn't know if there would be a bounty on how to build stuff as well.
They would.
Yeah, sometimes knowing how to break it's the best way to know how to build it.
There's another DAO out there called Decent DAO, and that's basically their whole remit too, is to find cool stuff and build it. There's just a group of coders. We could actually go talk to them too, maybe.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. How do you spell it? Decent? DECENT?
Yep.
Oh, nice.
Decent-dao.org.
I can't hear Rake. He's so quiet.
No, because I just said it's decent-dao.org.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll hit them up. Sweet.
Yeah, the only thing I would say, Mickey, is if we bring in multiple groups, just make sure it's communicated if a bounty's taken, someone else can't get it per se. So you might want to have some kind of centralized bounty system. If you, and I'm just throwing this out there, if you want any help setting up a DWork specific for that or something, if that's how you'd like to do it, feel free to reach out.
Okay, that probably yes. It depends. I think for hats, it's going to be inside their platform, but maybe for this decent DAO and maybe everyone else, we will do something public. So let me talk to them and see how they do business and
yeah,
find the best.
I just would hate to burn a bridge because like one person does it in one DAO and the other person does it in another DAO a day later and they don't get the bounty.
Yeah, I think it'd be more like a proposal process, and then we go with them after agreeing to a proposal. Cool.
I don't have anything else to cover. Anybody else want anything to go over before we end the product meeting?
Now that I think of it, no, I suppose I'll let somebody who knows this stuff better than me figure it out if it's possible. Never mind.
Say it.
No, I don't think I will.
I have a question. If a bad actor wanted to build ruggable phonons and commit it to our repo, is there anything we could do to stop them?
What do you mean?
Well, if someone added like this feature where they could like on one-sidedly back up their phonons without telling their counterparty and then send them and rug them, if they could do this through, I don't know how they would figure it out, but
like recreate a puff, make a mock card kind of a deal.
No, I'm thinking, and maybe this is just dumb, in which case you can tell me it's dumb, but like we're talking about finding a way through a smart contract to like back up your phonons with like a time horizon, and then you could send those phonons around the internet, and then if nobody claims them, it would go back to you. Isn't that kind of like one of the ideas that we're floating around?
Wait, so is that our dead man switch idea?
I think it was a dead man switch idea. Yeah. So my question is like, could someone build that with the smart contract and then just use it and then rug everyone's phonons?
Not currently.
So not possible currently, or not currently as no one's done it?
Not possible currently.
Okay.
Because at some point you're going to need the private key, and the only places you can get the private key are either taking out of the phone on network or from inside a phone on card, which you can't get into. So it's not possible because the phone on card generates the key.
Yeah.
So there's no way to do something with the key and then put the key onto a phone on card.
Right. Can't back it up. Yeah. Makes sense.
I have a couple thoughts I feel like sharing. Just kind of thinking about this a little bit, but I'm almost wondering if there's a possibility of like almost recreating a phone on card as a smart contract, and then just having you could do transfers to that smart contract card that you would be able to control, and be able to also transfer to others remotely through that smart contract. I feel like that might be what some of y'all are saying. I've been kind of sketching out some stuff over here.
Yeah, absolutely. You could theoretically do that.
Yeah, that's what
And
I
then
was
you
saying.
could just move. Okay. Because you could just do that, and then that way, from an offline perspective, if you transfer them to a chain card, then in an offline perspective, you would have access to those because you don't have access to the chain.
Right, but you could also do like phone on inboxes and things like that too, where you know, asynchronous stuff. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, that would be really neat.
Yeah, I guess
It's almost like we're creating it's almost like creating almost like a bank that would like a chain based bank that would be able to handle accounts in a similar way that a card would.
Yep.
Though, if you have the smart contract would have to be able to sign transactions or sign data in a way that somebody else wouldn't be able to.
Correct. Yes. We would have to.
Like, is there a way to have a smart contract that signs data and never reveals its private keys? I guess you wouldn't be able to do that because it runs out there, and then that would stop it in its tracks. You wouldn't be able to do that then.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super curious. Like, if Hats guys got a hold of this idea, what they would say.
Yeah, I mean, if a smart contract can't be signing things in a way that nobody else can replicate, then the virtual card is out.
I mean, so EVM can do almost anything, right? It's just a matter of how much you want to spend on the computation on chain. I think we should,
No, but anything that can be computed on chain, can't it just be computed off chain?
Yeah, but you don't want to do that off chain if it's something that
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying if it can be computed on chain, then a bad actor can compute it off chain, and then start extracting. Pretend to be the correct. It can pretend to be the real virtual phone on smart contract, and then pair with your card, receive a bunch of phone ons, and then send a bunch of phone ons to the card, and then you have a bunch of double spent phone ons.
Yeah, you could. That could happen. You'd want to make sure, 100% sure that you're connected to the chain.
Yeah, but the card has no concept of the chain, so a client can pretend to be the chain. I mean, the card can't do
No,
that.
that doesn't. You're right. That should come down to the, for example, if somebody front ended Uniswap's UI, they could do that through malicious acting on the internet, and you'd think you have Uniswap, but you don't.
Well, and this could
no,
be
it wouldn't
where
even be that. It'd be somebody out locally on their client fakes the Uniswap or fakes the virtual card activity, and then just creates a bunch of fraudulent phone ons and sends them around to people and spends them all over town, and then redeems those phone ons later on because they still have the private keys.
I'm pretty sure there's a way for the smart contract to prove that it is actually the smart contract.
Well, this could be a system where it would have to be more centralized, meaning in order to do the swap, you have to first send your phone on to, let's just say, a farming card, and then that does the transaction for you and then sends it back. So it's out of your hands when that happens. So it would go from you to we'll just say a trusted party to a trusted contract, back to the trusted party, back to you.
In that case, you wouldn't even need the contract.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there we go.
No contract. Haha, Nate wins again.
I don't have a problem.
I'm still.
Well, I mean, the beauty of the contract, though, is that you have liquidity on Uniswap. Right. You're going to have a lot more liquidity on Uniswap than you would in Phonon, especially in the early days.
Yes.
That would be the only reason why you would go that route, because you could potentially do a sale for today's market price with like 0.3% slippage.
Well, you don't want, from an optics perspective, we don't want to go with a trusted third party like what have like all these bridges use and have been hacked and lost all their funds. I mean, that's basically just creating a bridge like any of the other bridges that are out there, and it's vulnerable. And if we could say, RTTP is not systemically vulnerable, but only one phonon at a time is vulnerable, maybe that would be something better. But there's a lot of different ways of looking at it, I guess.
Yeah, I can tell you if we were to set up a marketplace, I'm pretty darn sure we're going to see people saying, "I'll buy your ETH for 20% less than market price today," or they got to protect themselves. If they throw a market order out that's today's price, if ETH goes down, they're going to get sold into immediately too. So we're going to find likely very low liquidity. And then if you start getting into oracles and stuff, it gets messy.
Exactly. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, now I will say one potential difference with a bridge is that the phonon isn't held in this third party. Like for a very short point in time, yes, but like the way a real bridge hack works is you have a bunch of ETH on one side, a bunch of wrapped ETH on the other side, and it's just sitting there waiting for someone to go one way or the other. This wouldn't have that. It would only be an in and out because you're not actually bridging. You're just moving it through and back.
Right.
So
I
I
gotta
think.
bounce. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, and I don't know all the bridge contract stuff. Seaman, I don't know all the bridge contract stuff specifically, but I do know that would be the big difference. There's no giant sum of cash sitting on this bridge.
Why
I'm a fan of no smart contracts.
Thank you, Tuesdays. Respect. No, I guess my thought is if whatever a smart contract can do, a regular computer can do infinitely faster, right? So if you're posting phonons to a smart contract and the smart contract has any capability of decoding those phonons at any point, then that means anyone can just decode that phonon and use it.
Well, what if doing the swap, you swapped it into another wallet as a deposit, so you could be getting it back in a different wallet than you sent it in? Does that make sense?
Well, then you have to do a transaction from that wallet to get it into another wallet.
Well, you have to do a transaction for the swap anyway.
Yes, but that doesn't require, if you're doing a transaction to pull it from that wallet into another one, then that is going to be, there's no, what's it called? There's no addition needed to the protocol because you can just.
But you would send ETH.
What is the overall problem? What are we trying to solve here with a smart contract?
Liquidity, swapping.
We needed an escrow smart contract.
Somebody trouble.
Hey, I guess what you're doing here, I would say that if something like this was to be built, I don't think it should be endorsed by the DAO, because right now you're saying our platform can't do what we want it to do, so now bring it on to chain.
I think there's got to be a way to build in an escrow service within the protocol. I think that'd be the best way, just because there would be no interaction with any chain.
I don't understand why we can't do like a limit order book that you're able to just post tons of different phonons for sale and people come by and decide what they want to pay. Like, sure, liquidity would be low for the first little while, but I mean, people are going to arbitrage it themselves. If there's deals to be made like 20% off ETH, that's not going to sit there for very long, I would say. I don't know who would actually make that trade, but you're going to find that people will arbitrage, and a phonon DEX would be the same price as every other DEX eventually.
I'm not a coder, and I can't read this stuff that I find about other smart contracts that that do escrow, but it looks like this shit exists out there in some form. It's just a matter of tailoring it to what we need.
It looked like this shit exists there.
But the issue with that is, if you're looking at an escrow smart contract, Phonon doesn't have that, and we're blockchain agnostic. So now you're going to have escrow accounts on one blockchain in particular. Like, how are you going to decide which chain to use? How are you going to manage what Bannon was saying, the trusted third-party risk? Who's in control of that smart contract? Who has access to it? What if there was a vulnerability? Is the DAO now responsible for that?
That all just depends on who actually ends up building it. Like if it was to be done as a smart contract on a chain, like if it can be built as a smart contract on a chain, I would think it could be adapted to be something that could be ran within the Phonon protocol, so it's not on chain. I would assume, but I'm just an idiot when it comes to coding, so whatever.
And I think we can talk about
Definitely.
this more later too. I mean, this is an alpha product meeting.
Yeah, I was letting everybody talk, but we can definitely end the 12 hour stuff, the recording.